Snake, you're north of the village. The truck carrying the nukes is heading towards the heart of the mountain. That's its final destination. We've got no intel on what lies beyond, so stay sharp.
There's one...
Snake, to the north of the village is a bridge that crosses a hydraulic pipe. Though normally the bridge is not used by people, if you slip, you will fall straight to the bottom of the valley. Be careful.
What's a channel doing here?
It is not for irrigation. They are hydroelectric pipes. I wonder if they run into EE.UU's crater lake. Normally they would build a reservoir at the bottom of the valley, but it was probably too dangerous. Los Cantos means sword peak. Snake. Snake, to the north of the village is a bridge that crosses a hydraulic pipe. Though you should be able to see across the EE.UU mountain range from there. There are not as many big trees at that elevation, and you will probably be well above the mist.
It'll be tough to hide up there.
You're not thinking about the scenery right now, are you?
Not while I'm surrounded by bad guys.
You should have seen it when the country was at peace. I know you would have been impressed.
Well, that'll be our reward for a successful mission. Sound good?
Wonderful. Thank you, Snake. There is an old fort around there.
What is it, boss? You sound upset.
Well, you see, it was built during the Civil War.
Let me guess. Disputes between Costa Rica's political parties escalated into all-out conflict.
See, conflict that cost my grandparents their lives. The most senseless sort of war. Countrymen mindlessly slaughtering their own. That fort is a reminder of that senselessness.
Sadly ironic, given who's occupying it now.
That war was the reason Costa Rica abolished the army. Please, Snake, get them out of our country.
I intend to. Chico says there's a bridge north of the village.
Yes, a narrow one, for crossing the pipe. On the other side of that is the road the trucks use, though it's collapsed in places.
I'll have nowhere to run if they spot me.
They could be blocking the road, too.
Is there another way?
There is a path along the cliff. After you cross the bridge, there are ruins of a fort on the mountain. Going through there would be a little easier. Once you come to the end of the mountain path, you'll be at the fort. That fort was built during the Civil War. It seems La Cia's troops are occupying it now.
This just gets better and better.
They've got gun turrets set up all around from the looks of it. Attract too much attention, and you'll really stir up the hornet's nest.
Maybe I'll try and find a way around.
You could always commandeer one of the turrets. A little target practice, perhaps?
Just like in Krasnogorye.
Krasno what?
Sorry, just thinking about old times.
EE.UU has more than one crater, because it's erupted so many times. I heard most of them filled up with rainwater and became lakes.
Calderas, huh?
Calderas? Yeah, something like that. Hey, I got an idea. When you get to the lake, can you keep an eye out for weird animals for me? People all over the world tell stories about giant monsters living in lakes. Nessie in Loch Ness, Nahuelito in Argentina, Ogopogo in Canada. I can hardly keep track of them all. They say that all these sightings prove dinosaurs do still exist.
But crater lakes are isolated. They're not connected to rivers.
Yeah, but you know Mokele Mumbembe in the Congo River? He can walk on land. So maybe they moved there from some other lake.
You sure know a lot about UMAs.
There used to be a guy in El Frente who was a hunter. He taught me lots of things. He even said he once went to a place called Isla del Monstruo.
A hunter on Isla del Monstruo.
Someday, I'm gonna be a hunter and catch some rare animals. Right after we restore peace to our land, of course. Did you ever hear of the Loch Ness Monster?
Now that one I know. Pretty much everyone's heard of old Nessie.
Great, so I don't have to explain. I think she's a long-lost dinosaur, don't you?
Sure. Why not?
One of the compas gave me a book about it, with photos. It looks exactly like the plesiosaur.
Then why does it only live in Loch Ness?
Well, it probably got cut off from the ocean. Back when Loch Ness was part of the ocean, some plesiosaurs became trapped there when the climate changed. There weren't any mammals there, so no natural predators. Today's Nessie is descended from those plesiosaurs.
Then wouldn't it make sense for there to be monsters in other lakes with similar climates?
Exactly. That's why there's been giant monster sightings in a bunch of other places. Like Nahuelito and Ogopogo. I don't know if there's one in Irasu too, but I know there's definitely something living in Lago Cosipolca.
You mentioned the Nahuelito. What is it?
It's a plesiosaur that lives in Lago Nahuel Huapi in Argentina. It's so differently, but I'm sure it's basically the same creature as Nessie. Except for one thing.
What?
Well, according to one theory, it's the result of a nuclear test back in the 50s.
What? There's no record of a nuclear test in Argentina in the 50s.
At the time, the president, General Juan Perón, was pushing hard to industrialize the country. I wouldn't be surprised if he conducted a top-secret nuclear test before he was overthrown in a coup.
Sounds a little far-fetched to me.
You think? Then maybe Nahuelito really is a dinosaur.
No, I didn't say that.
I mean, it's really pretty obvious.
Wait a minute.
Thanks for clearing that up, boss.
Dinosaur. What about the Ogopogo? And what kind of name is that anyway?
Ogopogo's a monster that lives in Okanagan Lake, in Canada. I guess it's an Indian name, because it's a legend passed down by the Indians.
A legend, huh? Well, then it's probably not.
There's written records of it too. The first one was in 1872, and there's been more sightings since the start of the 20th century. You starting to get into UMAs too, Snake?
Yeah, maybe.
UMA hunting. Now that's a real man's adventure. What do you say, Snake? After Nicaragua's at peace again, you want to go exploring together?
Well, we'll see. Might not be such a bad life.
Mokele Mumbembe lives in the Congo River. There's nothing mysterious about it, though. It's already been confirmed as a real living dinosaur. The local people know all about it, and when they were shown a drawing of a brontosaurus, every one of them said it was Mokele Mumbembe. When peace returns to Nicaragua, I want to go to the Congo myself.
Oh, the revolutionary movement in the Congo ended in failure, you know.
Yeah, I know. I wish we could do something to help, but Africa's awfully far away.
Africa.
Wonder if El Che ever saw Mokele Mumbembe. I wonder if I will.
Well, best to take care of business here before dreaming about Africa.
Yeah, I guess you're...
You were saying Japan has a peace constitution too.
Yep. Japan renounced war in Article 9 of its constitution, aspiring sincerely to an international peace based on justice and order. The Japanese people forever renounce war as a sovereign right of the nation, and the threat or use of force as a means of settling international disputes. In order to accomplish the aim of the preceding paragraph, land, sea, and air forces, as well as other war potential, will never be maintained. The right of belligerency of the state will not be recognized.
You know it by heart.
Some things you never forget.
Impressive. There were some parts I didn't quite get, though. Like the whole means of settling conflicts thing.
Yeah, that's been the subject of debate. whether or not it forbids any and all use of force. The current constitution was originally drawn up under the Allied occupation. The first draft was even submitted by Allied GHQ. So naturally, there are some who feel the constitution was imposed on Japan by foreigners.
Things like that are never simple. Same for every country, I guess.
One thing's for sure, though. Not having an army let Japan focus on economic recovery after the war. In that sense, it's the same as Costa Rica.
Kaz, you were in the Japanese Self-Defense Force, right? I thought that Article 9 you were talking about earlier prevented Japan from having an army.
Yeah, and that's another subject of controversy. The Self-Defense Force is an organization for the purpose of defense. Article 9 of the Constitution does not deny Japan's right to self-defense. Therefore, the SDF is constitutional. That's Tokyo's official stance.
Sounds complicated.
Call it what you will. It's a distinctly Japanese way of interpreting things.
The U.S. has military forces stationed in Japan, right?
Right. Even though the Allied occupation ended, American forces are still stationed there under the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty.
Unlike Costa Rica.
Part of it stems from the occupation, but Japan also occupies a key strategic position from America's perspective. It's next door to the Soviet Union, and close to China and North Korea as well. It's integral to the security of Pacific Asia. For America, Japan represents a barrier against communism.
What about for Japan?
As you might expect, there's deep-rooted opposition to the alliance. In 1960 and 1970, when the treaty was up for revision, there were mass protest movements against it, especially in Okinawa. The U.S. only gave it back to Japan 2 years ago, and American bases are still concentrated there. It's a heavy burden for the Okinawans to bear.
Then why don't they scrap the treaty?
Lots of reasons. There's the imbalance of power with the U.S., of course, and if Japan pulled out, they'd be losing the nuclear umbrella America provides. And as for whether the JSDF could defend the country after the Americans left, I really couldn't say. Costa Rica is in a similar situation. They depend on the Inter-American Treaty of Reciprocal Assistance, the so-called Rio Pact.
So, the countries with peace constitutions end up having to rely on other countries' armies. Kind of ironic.
On the flip side, not everybody in America is satisfied with it either. Some people argue Japan is freeloading off America's security guarantee. And you know how Japan's industrial exports are making inroads in the States.
Yeah, I've got a Japanese camera myself. Best damn camera around.
Japan's low defense spending allows it to invest more in economic recovery and expand its share of the American market. That's a bitter pill for Americans to swallow. You know that today, Japan is under the American nuclear umbrella.
Right.
The U.S. vowed to retaliate against any country that launches a nuclear strike against an allied country. That promise deters nuclear attacks against America's allies, hence the term nuclear umbrella. But suppose the Russians nuke Tokyo. Would America really nuke Moscow in return? If they did, the Soviet Union would undoubtedly retaliate. Would Washington really be willing to risk having a bomb dropped on itself in order to avenge Japan? I'm not so sure.
Don't tell me you're still worried about Japan. After all these years?
It's not that.
To be honest, I'm not convinced either. But Moscow faces the same dilemma. Maybe Washington wouldn't retaliate on Japan's behalf. Then again, maybe it would.
So you're saying Moscow wouldn't want to risk being attacked either?
The whole concept of nuclear deterrence is entirely hypothetical to begin with. When you get down to it, it's all smoke and mirrors.
Japan shall not possess, manufacture, or allow the introduction of nuclear weapons into Japan. Those are the 3 non-nuclear principles set forth by the Japanese government.
Allow the introduction? That's funny. Some of the U.S. warships that visit Japanese ports are armed with nukes. Or are you going to tell me they transfer them at sea onto other ships every time they visit?
You raise a good point, Snake. But the Japanese government doesn't recognize it as such. The introduction of nuclear weapons into Japanese territory would need to be agreed upon in advance. America hasn't made any such agreements. Therefore, they aren't bringing nukes into Japan. That's the official excuse.
Doesn't sound like much of an excuse to me.
I don't blame you. Keep in mind, though, Japan suffered actual nuclear attacks. Anti-nuke sentiment there runs deeper than you think. I suppose the government's not really in a position to admit that sort of thing.
So tell me, Kaz, how's the self-defense force you were in different from an army?
The JSDF is set up for national defense. It's not configured for aggression against other countries. It's what you'd call exclusive defense.
Exclusive defense?
It's the fundamental strategic posture of the SDF. No preemptive attacks. Only the minimum defensive action necessary after an enemy attacks.
Anything defined as self-defense, then?
The JSDF originated as the National Police Reserve. Back then, American forces stationed in Japan were being sent over to fight in the Korean War. So in a sense, the NPR was filling a gap.
Police, huh? Reminds me of the Costa Rican Civil Guard.
Yeah, exactly. They're also dispatched to provide disaster relief. The year before I joined, they had a hell of a time trying to rescue some buses that got hit by landslides.
So why'd you quit the JSDF?
Because I didn't have a reason to be in Japan anymore.
A reason?
My mom had died 3 years earlier, so I didn't have to care for her anymore. With her gone, there was no point hanging around in Japan.
Yeah, but a man with your talents could have risen pretty high in the ranks, I imagine.
I don't know what they made of me. Could be it actually alienated me from the brass. And personally, I could never get used to the idea of exclusive defense.
Meaning?
On a strategic level, I can see how a country could go with the exclusive defense model used by the JSDF, and I've got nothing against my fellow soldiers who believe in it. On a tactical level, though, it just rubbed me the wrong way. To put it simply, I was itching for a real fight.
I figured.
And I felt as long as I was in the JSDF, I'd never be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with my father, who was in the U.S. Army. Seeing Yukio Mishima's suicide didn't help either.
Yukio Mishima. The guy who wrote The Temple of the Golden Pavilion.
The way he questioned the status quo hit home with me. Not that I admired his vision or anything, but it did get me thinking, that's for sure.
Cross the bridge and head north.
I'm seeing things.
Fulton recovery subject confirmed onboard helicopter. If you had something to stand on, you could probably reach that. They've okayed your request for a cardboard box. It'll be sent out shortly. Good. You reached the transport route. Follow it to their base.
Someone attacking? Fulton recovery helicopter is complete. Freeze. Freeze.
Fulton recovery subject confirmed onboard helicopter. You have to get through that fort. Their base is beyond it.
What's going on? Rise and shine. What's going on? Rise and shine. Can't be imagining things.
I'm inside the facility. There's rows and rows of trucks here.
If that's where they brought the nukes, then the truck we're after should be there. Snake, can you tell which one of the trucks brought the nukes? One of them must have the same license plate as the one from the terminal.
Mr. Kojima? Metal Gear. Not this one. Nothing. Where are they? Sunlight! This is the one. The exhaust's still warm. But the cargo's already been offloaded.
Just a minute. This isn't what we agreed on.
It's too late. The changes have already been finalized.
You told me it was going to be a deterrent, that we wouldn't have to launch.
I am not arguing with you, Doctor. Our goal is to create the perfect deterrent.
That's why I agreed to help develop it.
However, in order to achieve that perfect deterrent, we must show the world our strength. 3 key principles ensure effective nuclear deterrence. First, you must have nuclear weapons. Second, you must never use them first. And third, and most important, if someone attacks you, you must strike back. Unless we prove beyond a doubt that these 3 principles work in practice, the world will not accept our new deterrent. And the only way to do that is to show them we're capable of actually launching a nuke.
But isn't deterrence supposed to stop nukes from being used?
Exactly. And so the one we launch will be the last one ever.
I won't let you use my creation like that.
Your creation? That thing wasn't even your idea to begin with. You stole it, didn't you?
Stole it? You're one to talk. You got the idea for bipedal locomotion from the communists in the first place.
You listen to me, Doc. Keep quiet. Do as I say. And not another word about stolen ideas. Should we succeed here, you'll be the toast of the scientific community. And your name will go down in history as champion of both progress and national security.
The hell with that!
Doctor! Unless we prove we're capable of launching, Peace Walker is useless as a deterrent.
You used me!
We used each other. I'll get my old director's job back at headquarters, and you'll finally be able to walk tall among your colleagues.
I won't let you get away with this!
How unfair. I have to take your legs for myself! Peace won't just come to us, Doc. We are going to have to meet it halfway. V for victory. Wait!
Hey, you okay?
Don't do it! Gonna do it! He's going.
You're fired.
get this mission started. Complete the mission and proceed to the Fulton recovery point so we can get you back alive and well. Good luck out there.
Sabotaging enemy bases is another principle of guerrilla warfare. You will need explosives for that. And naturally, once they detonate, the enemy will know you're there. So you need to make sure you have enough time to get to safety before they go off. Best to plan your escape route before you go and plant the explosives.
Costa Rica's forests are more diverse than you might expect. Not all of them are tropical rainforests. Costa Rica is close to the equator, it is true, but it is also very mountainous.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Go up 4,000 feet in elevation and the temperature drops more than 7 degrees.
There are basically 3 types of forests. The lowlands are covered in tropical rainforests, the highlands by tropical cloud forests, and areas where there is a dry season have tropical dry forests. The lowlands along the Caribbean coast are mostly covered by hot, humid tropical rainforests, what most people envision when they think of jungle. The closely packed trees spread their branches out at great heights to soak up the sun. Their shade makes it dark near the ground, so be careful. Of course, with so little light, few plants can grow on the ground, so it might actually be easier to walk.
So even if you could photosynthesize, it wouldn't do you any good.
Photosynthesize? People cannot do that.
Most people, anyway.
Areas with a distinct dry season, like the Pacific coast, have tropical dry forests. During the dry season, the trees drop their leaves. It gives you a clearer view, but at the same time, there are fewer places to hide. So be careful.
Sounds dull.
It is not really. A lot of trees flower during the dry season, including my favorite, the tabebuia. It has these amazingly vivid yellow flowers. Costa Rica is said to have about 87,000 species of living things. That is about 5% of all the known species in the world.
A tiny place like this? Huh. I'll be damned.
I want to protect that biological diversity. When diversity is lost, the environment weakens. Just look at the plantations.
I think I know what you mean. It's like trying to assemble a unit from similar guys. It usually doesn't work out. Throw a few square pegs in there and everything falls into place.
There are so many species here that a lot of them have not even been classified yet. I am hoping I can help do that someday. Kind of like a parataxonomist.
Say that again?
Parataxonomist. Someone who helps a taxonomist.
Oh. Huh. I thought you were going to say it had something to do with parachutes.
You're weird. The Development Corporation of Costa Rica, or CODESA, was established 2 years ago. Since President Oduber was elected this year, the state has been putting a lot more effort into development.
The corporate state, so to speak.
Growth is good and all, but there is one thing that bugs me.
What's that?
I cannot help but wonder whether CODESA is not just a front for the CIA.
You mean what the professor was saying about the CIA mercenaries posing as security guards? They were using CODESA as camouflage?
I am worried that development is going to destroy the forests, but I do not suppose it has anything to do with this.
Destroy all enemy supplies with your C4.
Enemies close by!
with what you have.
HQ, come in.
This is HQ.
This is Patrol. Contact lost. Going to alert status.
Understood. The enemy should still be nearby. Find him.